I'm Dwight Gibson,
I'm Roderick Payne.
and today's topic is about hiring armed security. And not only just hiring armed security, but hiring the right armed security. So there was an instance where that's been reported on. The actual incident took place around COVID, which was 2020. There was a gas station in Las Vegas. We can cue the video up. You can take a look at the video.
.7-Eleven in August of 2020. Tensions escalate at this Northeast neighborhood convenience store in less than 2 minutes. Mitchell limiting customers due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Martin, frustrated, barges in. Mitchell pulls out a gun. She and another employee remove Martin. She continues to point the gun at him. He slaps it away.
But there was an armed guard. I guess they were only allowing a certain amount of people into the gas station at a time, and things got a little heated. Someone wanted to get in. They kind of forced their way in, and the guard went hands-on and got the person out of the store, but they also drew their weapon to get the person out of the store. And then once the person was out of the store, there was still some pushing and shoving going on back and forth. And then the patron shoved the guard's hand or arm away with the weapon in it. And then the guard decided to still point the weapon at the individual's chest. And they don't show it in the video, but, moments after that, trigger was pulled. Patron went down and end up, losing their life. So my question to you is, at what point did the guard make the wrong decision and go too far overboard? Mm-hmm. Because we always say you can't tell a person when and when not to shoot. No. Because you're not in that scenario. And everyone can always look back and say, well, what I would have did in this situation is
it's
this.
the totality of circumstance. Right. They looking at everything that existed at that time. Mm-hmm. How many witnesses were out there? What did you get excited because other people were watching? What other angles they got? They only showed on the news one angle.
Right.
And you're going to look at, what was the intention? She took the gun out, and you clearly see the indexing of her fingers, pressed it up against the back of his head. Mm-hmm. And tried to push him with the gun. I just go on to say that's probably the worst. She indexed her finger. Whoever taught her how to shoot or whatever she was in before she got in security, she understood it, right? That's a pro move. Getting that close to somebody, you rarely see police officers put their gun to somebody's head because the gun drawing and holstering and handcuffing is usually done from a serious distance so that you can have the heightened advantage. You don't want to draw your gun and then realize you're dealing with Jet Li. He takes his gun and slaps you and starts shooting people because that can happen. So that if I was going to break it down like NFL Sunday Ticket or something like that, it would be you don't pull a gun on somebody that close. You try not to go hands-on unless you absolutely have to when you're wearing a firearm. They taught us in Police Academy, every call you go on is a gun call because you're bringing a gun. Mm-hmm. And if somebody's stronger than you or more aggressive than you, they could take your gun and go hurt other people, hurt themselves, or hurt you. So first step, like, don't go hands-on with a gun. Usually when you see people draw, they're giving clear, concise commands. They're not with one hand, pushing somebody, because that could go totally wrong. Remember, it only takes one blow. I watch MMA now quite a bit, and I'm always surprised when I see somebody get hit with a spinning fist, and then they show the slow-mo, and you can see the lights just get turned completely out. That can happen when she was up on that guy if he'd have turned around with a quick elbow. So, like, tactically, that's not sound, and that's not something that somebody should be doing. I've never seen a training course that teaches you, unless it's like hostage taking or like some paramilitary operation, that you're going to be putting the gun up against somebody like that. That's craziness. So that's step one. She was way too close. And I think she just severely overreacted. It sucks because she's going to have to sit down in jail and somebody lost their life. Other people had to witness that. We had a security guard one time when we were doing strip clubs. And, at one point, we had a bunch of nightclubs and strip clubs. And so we were outside, and we had this guy who was a military vet, cool guy, had the whole haircut, all the paperwork, a legit guy. He was talking on the ledge at this nightclub, and had his firearm, like, showing the girl the firearm, and he pulled it out and tried to show it, and the gun went off. It hit the ground, but everybody took off running. And so this was an unfortunate situation. We had to call it in, report it. We had to be embarrassed that happened on our watch, and we had to fire him. But that's what I'm saying. You don't know who's that, and I've seen that happen in law enforcement. Guys pull out guns or thought they had the taser, but it's really a gun, and shoot and kill somebody. So, it's not just security guard. This guy, like I said, has done multiple tours in Iraq. He's a real deal guy. And he just had a judgment flaw and, ended up shooting the ground, could have shot himself in the foot, could have shot the young lady. All trying to touch a gun, trying to show a girl. So it's these things that when you hire armed guards, you have to consider. And when you deal with anything with an arm, you have to consider that it can go that way. They put the guard there probably armed because that store is probably in a bad area. That guard may have a history with that guy. I didn't really dive into the report like that, but could have had a history with that guy where he comes in all the time. And maybe he was going through a mental issue. I heard her attorneys try to argue that he had methamphetamines in his blood when they did the toxicology. So that could have played a portion. They're going to try to spin the story in whichever way they can. But, like, you got to think about that. You're in a situation that first of all, you become responsible for every single bullet that comes out of that gun. So first, she took the gun out, pointed at him. There's other people standing in line right there. So you put them in a crossfire situation. You could hurt somebody. Then you get up on him, you get outside, and what ended up happening, he tried to grab for the gun, it turned away. She turned right back and shot him right in the chest. That was a judgment flaw on her behalf, and now she has to pay for it. So to see a security guard do something like that is, the company's going to get sued 1,000. Somebody lost their life.
How should she have respond? How do we train our guards to respond in a situation where if it's only going to be 2 people allowed in the store at a time, and I don't know the individual's name, but let's say he came in the store and there's 3 people in the store. How do we tell our guards to respond in a situation like that, even if they're armed?
Well, quick tactical point. A door like that had a double door, but they had one lock, one was open. The one door that was open, if I'm there, I'm not opening the door, allowing individuals to walk in on me. I'm going to open the door, step outside, step beside the door, and only allow enough space for you and that door to open and you to go inside, and then I'm going to back my way back in and close the door and lock it again. She opened the door just wide enough to let the other guy in. She was inside, which means that a person has to take a progressive step and move forward, and they already got the momentum. So they're already coming towards you, like lunging in. He walks past her, does whatever he does, gets past her, and then starts like trying to fight with her, at which time she grabs the shirt. And then what she should have been doing is trying to control. Like, if you're going to choose to go hands on, I would have probably maybe gave some loud commands and then draw the weapon from a distance. Hey, need you down. We told you couldn't come in. Now you put your hands on me. You need to put your hands on. You need to spread your legs, spread your hands, and lay on the ground until law enforcement get here and tell somebody to call the police. Hold them at gunpoint from a distance. Not all that arguing and fighting. Easily he could have took that gun from her, and we would be talking about how the guy came in and killed this lady.
Right.
So, it's unfortunate either way, but from a tactical side, she handled that all wrong. How we would train our people: step outside the door, no matter how big the crowd is. If people are getting unruly, call 911.
But, I don't know what the circumstances were that caused him to come in. Maybe he thought it was his turn. But I would say, why not go up to him peacefully in the beginning? You know you have a weapon. Ask him to leave.
He got irate. He became irate because he got tired of waiting. That's what they said on the news.
Possibly true. But hey, need you to step out.
But that's command presence. Maybe she lacked the verbal, the command presence again.
Well, that's why I was going with it, because when you're hiring an armed guard, I don't want to sound sexist, but usually in most cases, especially if it's a high risk or a dangerous situation, most clients, they ask for a male. Now, not saying that a woman can't do the job, because there are plenty of qualified women that can do the job, but do you think her being female had anything to do with the decision-making process, or is it just training?
Well, I mean, obviously she had the again, female guards, there's a lot of great ones just like male guards. Like, you just can't say, so
Right.
We're not saying that. We're looking at it from the standpoint, in that scenario with a store with the line was kind of robust for a gas station, so that must be a very busy store. You're going to have somebody with some size and some command presence. You put a smaller guy out there, and they might try to take advantage of him. I mean, it happens. So a female definitely, at whatever time that was, I think it was at night or at dusk, like the freaks come out at night. And so, you don't know who's doing what. We talked to a guy at one of our offices, and the guy was trying to come get a job, and we asked him, he was banging on the door. We asked him, hey, did you have an appointment here? No, I just want to get a job. Okay. What license do you have? Oh, I got my DJ. Oh, I got my arm license too. I said, okay. I said, well, we sell guns here. We don't just allow anybody in, so appointment only. He was like, oh, man, I love guns. Pulls up his shirt, has 2 firearms. 2. And think this individual tried to come in here on the premise of, I want to apply for a job.
Muscle his way, and he gonna get him a job.
This is. He was like, so when y'all gonna call me? Hey, man. So
Wait by the phone.
yeah, we look at stuff like that, and we're a security company. So this is a different type of world we live in. You got to take heed. You need security at the site. We are a gun store as well, so we have guns on location. So you're gonna need guns to protect guns. So you in that scenario, he loses that battle. But somebody could have got hurt. In other scenarios, dealing with like gas stations, in that scenario, I don't really see anything. And then she said she shot him. The news said that she shot him, and what the judge repeated, she said it's not so much what happened in the store, you pulling a gun, it's what happened outside the store that you're getting convicted of. Shot the man, then pointed the gun at his wife and said, you need to get off 7-Eleven property. So I'm still doing my job. If you don't want that, you need to leave. And it's like, whew, that's cold-blooded.
So that's where, I don't know if every company does this, but part of the process here is before we bring on an armed guard, and before, obviously, if we can't deploy them in the field if we didn't bring them on, but there's a psych evaluation. And part of the reason, that the price for an armed guard is significantly higher than the price of an unarmed guard is because of the risk. And why is it a higher risk? Because of the mere presence of a gun. Because the chances of an incident happening with a gun are increased exponentially when there's a gun present.
You know what I learned? When I got sworn in at the police department, I seen other guys get sworn in, and it was like joining the club. And I see some guys that got sworn in grow 10 feet that day. They put on the badge and had that gun on their side, and like they started going out trying to manhandle people in the streets. And you get those guys in law enforcement. So imagine how many of those guys don't even make it across the threshold for law enforcement. And what do you think they fall into? Security. The issue with that is you don't know who you're dealing with. And so temperament is a big thing. Psychological sometimes you have some psychopaths out there with badges, right? You have guys that were successfully able to skew a test. They ask you in the psychological, have you ever told a lie? And a lot of people fail in psychological because of that. Get up there, nope.
You're telling one now, sir.
You're telling one now, sir. They say, they give you a scenario. What if you pull over a vehicle driving erratic, pull over a vehicle, find your mother in there? What would you do? She's DUI.
I'm going to write her a ticket. I'm going to
arrest her. You fail because of that, too, because it's like, you going to arrest your mom? So then you say, no, I would call her a cab, have somebody come pick her up. He said, okay. From a morality side, if you let her go that time, maybe that time would have been the time to save her. Maybe the next time she kills somebody or kills herself. So you taking her to jail and forcing her to go get help may be the best thing to do. So they'll really mess with your brain. The psychological for an armed guard is in-depth, but maybe not quite that much, right? You want to have people out there that are capable of making decisions. You don't know who you got. Guys sometimes put on a uniform and go straight military mode. You got some security guards and some security guard companies. I've seen some people be way overzealous, grabbing people, slamming people, innocent embarrassment to the company or the establishment that they're protecting. So, like I said, beware of the guys with 30 badges. You remember, you remember the guy I was telling you about? He was working for us, and he had like a police radio, and he was on site, right? And we talking to him, and I'm like, yeah, man. I said, I hear the scanner going off, and he's like, listen to the radio. I was like, you're on the clock for Fast Guard right now. What is that radio? He was like, nah, this is my radio. I work for the city of, I ain't gonna say the name. I said, okay. He had like a vest, and it had like Leo, an agent, and he had 2 or 3 badges on. And he was like, yeah, I was grandfathered in, in this county. So I'm like a public service aide, but I still carry a gun. I respond to calls. I said, okay. I'm a police officer.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, sir. Go ahead and go on break. Just don't come back.
I never heard of that. So the very next day, I hear he's like listening to the calls like he was going to leave our site and go and respond.
Yeah.
So he gets to the, we look at the news the next day, and we see this guy, and they flash his name real big. And I seen his name, and I was like, hey, that guy's one of my employees. Impersonating a police officer. He had a full set of red and blue lights in his car. He was running red lights. He was doing everything that he wanted to do under the premise. So armed guards can be sometimes a little wacky. Hiring an armed guard is sometimes necessary. That's a very serious situation that occurred, and somebody lost their life because of it.
Which is why, in most cases when someone asks for an armed guard, the line of questioning is a little different. And then a lot of times we recommend, let's go with 2 unarmed guards as opposed to an armed guard. And then if the situation calls for an armed guard, then we'll obviously put an armed guard out there. But then, the price issue comes into play, and some people understand and pay the higher price, and some people say, I'm just going to go with who's ever the cheapest. And unfortunately, when you go with whoever is the cheapest, sometimes you get a untrained person that just was able to meet the bare minimum requirements of carrying a firearm and being a guard.
And
it's unfortunate, but it happens.
Practice is another big thing, and that's why the guards that are able to go practice now it's like $1 a bullet, no matter what caliber you shoot. So if you don't practice with the weapon, and that's also a potentially dangerous situation. Putting somebody out there with a firearm that does not have the training, that guard has some type of training. She had her finger indexed, but holding a gun up to a guy's head like you're a hostage in Call of Duty.
The first, from what I remember, the first interaction, the gun was drawn.
Correct.
Like the minute he stepped across the
she drew it.
The door, the gun was
She had a
out.
quick draw. I don't know if you've seen the speed of that draw. That was pretty quick and efficient. But again, that's...
So maybe there was some history
Yeah,
there.
if you're an armed guard, I want you to think about this, armed guards. I want you to think about this, customers. If you're an armed guard and you have a history of shooting people on jobs that you go to, and companies get sued and shut down because of you making the decision to shoot, whether it's good or bad, and there's no such thing as a good shooting. Even when you're being the hero, when you kill somebody, there's also a wrongful death, always a wrongful death civil suit. So there's no such thing as a good shooting. How long do you think you would last as a security guard if every site you go on you shoot somebody? Yeah, you're a heck of a guy. People are afraid when you're around, but you're a liability. So I did my 11 years in law enforcement. I didn't shoot a one, and I've arrested felons. So when it comes down to it, you have to be cognizant, and you have to be use a little bit of brain power. And unfortunately, in that situation, she didn't use any brain power and maybe got a little bit emotional, and that emotion is going to have her sitting in a cage for a few years. It's sad, and she can definitely never be a security guard again, and she has to go on knowing that she took somebody's life and it wasn't really necessary.
Yeah. Well, that wraps us. Tell us what you think. Leave a comment. And if you are looking to hire an armed or an unarmed guard, you can give us a call at 844-254-8273. You can also reach us online at www.fastguardservice.com, where you can get an instant quote. And don't forget to download our app on the App Store or on the Google Play Store. We hope to hear from you guys soon. Thank you and have a great day.
You guys have a nice one.